Bullpup rifles should be more popular in the United States. Well, okay, I don't know about should, but it's surprising that given their obvious on-paper advantages that they aren't more popular. Bullpup rifles have a long barrel length respective to their short overall length, which means you end up with a more compact package with better ballistic performance versus a typical AR. Bullpup fans love demonstrating this by showing a Bullpup next to an AR with the stock fully extended, but that's almost a specious argument. It makes more sense to show an AR with the stock extended to whatever length it will be in shooting configuration. Still, it's a pretty clear difference. The kel-tec RDB with a 17-inch barrel and a suppressor is shorter than a 16-inch AR. This makes the rifle more maneuverable and easier to store and transport. You also have to take NFA law into account. SBRs are expensive, and the process to get one in the United States is onerous. $200 for a stamp? What are they, fucking rare? Plus, if you want to transport an SBR across state lines, you're supposed to file paperwork with the ATF letting them know when and where you're going. Why go to that trouble when a Bullpup is the same size? So if in theory the Bullpup is an obvious win-win, the reason they aren't more popular has to be that there's something seriously wrong with either the Bullpup as a concept, or coincidentally with every single Bullpup currently on the market. Brassfax and I decided to find out for ourselves, so we each picked up a Bullpup and met in Utah to shoot them and compare notes. So we've been trying to get our hands on some Bullpups for a while, because I think we like the idea of Bullpups, and we wanted to get a couple of Bullpups, set them up how we would set up any of our other, fighting rifles, GPR type guns, and then just shoot them in a variety of conditions. And first, of course, we had to pick which Bullpups we were going to get.
I was going to pick that one, but
I called dibs using so you called like verbal dibs, but I called credit card dibs, which is where I just bought it.
You just bought it, yeah. I wasn't even sure if we were going to buy Bullpups because this was a harebrained idea at 12:30 at night.
So yeah, I went with the kel-tec RDB because I always kind of wanted like one of kel-tec's real rifles, like the SU-16, the RDB, RFB. I always thought they were cool looking, but they're hard to get sometimes. But it is cheaper. I saved a lot of money, so this is a $1,000 rifle, and yours is a little more
like
expensive.
A $2,000 rifle with.
So yeah, if you snooze, you lose. If you just bought an RDB earlier, then I would have been forced to buy the $2,000 option. So yeah, we're picking our Bullpups, and we know we're going to want to put light, sling, optic, preferably laser for use with night vision, because we're night vision nerds. And so even just looking at the Bullpups on the market,
you
we
can
disqualify.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, we're not going to go with like a Bushmaster M17 or whatever. Like that gun barely existed. It's long out of production. Same thing, FNF 2000. Like. What a fantastic piece of early 2000s cringe that is, but you can't even get those anymore. The Hellion, you can just look at the Hellion like, as a thought exercise, go look at a picture of a Hellion and try to imagine where your light's gonna go. Plus also, I've shot a Hellion. I know I hate that gun. The AUG, you have to replace a ton of parts on the AUG if you're gonna wanna like actually accessorize it. So yeah, we kept narrowing it down.
This is a good starting
to the point where we're like, wow, really there are only 3 options. It's X95, RDB,
or the both of the Tavors, yeah.
Yeah, or either Tavor would be fine. So yeah,
these are great starting points. That's the magazine, but
nice work.
This is a great starting point for the objectives that we had in mind, at least as a jump-off point. I think we're probably going to dabble with some Bullpups a little bit more than this, unwillingly perhaps. But in terms of tried to set this up as close to how we set up our AR-15s, our generalist rifles, these are a good way to do it, or a good starting point to do it.
Yeah, and also it's interesting, I think, that we both ended up with the probably lower in overall quality and reputation civilian style Bullpups rather than the military style, just because these are some of the newer designs on the market, and that does make it a little bit easier to accessorize. So as you can probably see, I don't have a laser on here. I tried, and it was just not happening, and all I could really end up with was a vampire light and an optic to shoot passive. So my night vision capability is very limited.
Well, you could have gotten an AUG then.
Yeah, I might as well have just got a fucking AUG. The problem that I ran into is that this distance here on a lot of Bullpups is really tall. And it's much taller on the factory handguard of the kel-tec, because it's a big plastic one that comes all the way down to the trigger guard.
Really thick.
And I was thinking, I was looking at pictures of it and thinking, like, I'll just put a button on top and I'll be able to reach up. And then, with the factory handguard, that was just, was not really going to be feasible. So I had to replace it with the slimmer M-LOK handguard, just so I can get my hand up there. And then also the other problem is that the rails on these are really short. You kind of take AR rail space for granted. When you shorten the overall amount of rail you're trying to put either a magnified optic, which is quite long, or a red dot magnifier, because either way we want magnification, and a laser, and a switch for the laser, and the light, and all this. Yeah, so it gets really difficult, and that's why I ended up with this kind of jank setup. And I think, whether or not you intended to, you sort of happened into almost the perfect Bullpup configuration.
Sort of. So I wanted to run an LPVO because I just, that's what I do. I run LPVOs, despite having a video called LPVOs Are Dead, which no one has ever watched in the history of, 700,000 views. No one has watched that video.
Well, they watched the title.
They watched the title. So LPVOs are, in fact, not dead. I like LPVOs, but you really quickly realize with this platform, or just Bullpups in general, all Bullpups have this issue. They have to hit a certain overall length, so you end up with a really long rear end, and the MDR is especially egregious. I think only the VHS is worse in terms of length of pull, but you have a really large rear section, which means the LPVO ends up getting sort of pushed down the rail just due to how the design is, right? There's more rear, there's more ass, there's less front. So as you can see here, this is still, honestly, I would love to go one click forward on this thing, but I can't, because despite having some rail up here, the bell of the optic is taking up so much room that I couldn't even put a PEC 15 on here. I tried, there's not enough room. It does not fit under the bell of the optic. So then I had to switch to something like the USNV DIRV, which is very flat, fits under here. Once again, the bell's in the way. I can't actually press the button of the DIRV up here. It's in the way. I could do it, but then my finger would actually get just snapped off because it would get wedged because that clearance was so poor. At that point, I was about ready to give up on night vision and Bullpups in general. But then I tried the Mall out because the Mall just came back from RMA, and this ends up actually working out okay because unlike a lot of these other Bullpups, at least the MDR, it doesn't have a lot of rail space, but it does have a very thin rail. Mm-hmm. So you can reach the top area. You can't really reach like a PEC 15 like you would normally would, and like I said, the optic is in the way once again. So the Mall ended up being, it's almost the perfect Bullpup laser in a lot of ways, because we take that, like you said, we take that rail space for granted. There's no room to put a laser on here and the buttons for the laser.
Yeah, and if you went with a different optic setup, you would gain some options back. So like if you did red dot magnifier
or LCAN,
we were saying. Yeah, LCAN might actually be the ticket.
Because it gives you all the room you need. You can put a laser up here, you can put a button up here.
Also, yeah, short eye relief optics are great on Bullpups, as we learned that. But yeah, so say you switched up your optic stack, you'd be able to use the DIRV, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, easy. DIRV would be a really good fit.
I have very few options regardless, just because of how the rail on this is set up.
Well, here, stock up the rifle and put your hands where you want to put your hands.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather be farther forward, but the rail doesn't go that far. The other problem is I've got this charging handle track up here. Mm-hmm. So any laser or anything that hangs off too far to the sides wouldn't work. So the DIRV, you could make it work. Mm-hmm. The DIRV would not work on here. It'd block the charging handle, maybe even not even fit on there. So yeah, this thing is quite limited. Certainly it would be possible to get a laser box up here, maybe put an angled switch on the side.
Sort of what I was doing with the...
and I might try that a little bit, but yeah, that was really the frustration for me. Is like, I think this is probably the second easiest Bullpup to accessorize, and it's still a huge pain in the dick.
Like even getting that flashlight on there. Oh, you tightened it.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to source a Mod Button Classic because I don't have room for the switch and the light mount. I was going to do this with the original handguard, so that's why I didn't mount the light to the handguard, because their factory handguard is just a big block of plastic, and however old this design is, 10 plus years I think at this point, kel-tec has still never made rail sections for that factory handguard. So yeah, I was gonna okay, I don't have room for the light mount and the switch, so I got to get a classic Mod Button, which I think is discontinued. So I had to go on eBay and overpay for a green one. Just so that I could have my light mount and my button be integrated into
Well,
the
it's
same
also
thing.
color matching, so I'll give you some points back there.
And yeah, there's other problems, like sling mounting is not ideal on this. This thing is covered with sling mounts, and just none of them are all that good. We probably should address the elephant in the room at some point, but
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So if I were to redo this all again, I think the RDB or the
letters?
MDRX. I hate TLAs. The MDR is probably the most ergonomic, or not ergonomic, the most capable of taking optical systems.
What was that?
Because we have that length of pull, which means we can pull all back. So I would probably do like an EOTech magnifier would be a really good fit for something like this. Lets me put just any box I want on the front. Yeah. The problems didn't stop there.
Yeah, so as far as actually, you know, shooting these, we kind of do the same type of shooting that we always do. You know, we do some run and gun stuff, positional, shooting off of rocks or whatever. And I think for the most part, they work pretty well. But then, yeah, I think we noticed just some weird little things, like you keep bruising your knuckles every time you try to go stabilize off of a rock.
Yeah, you kind of take this for granted with the AR-15 because the magwell is right here. But with these things, you're actually, at least these two models specifically, there's not much stopping you from, you know, you come up on a piece of cover. There's not much stopping you from that piece of cover from like punching you in the fist. Now, if we have a VTAC barricade where the contact point is incredibly limited, it's not too big of a deal, but you use a lot of real world cover, rocks, cars, you know, whatever, you name it. You end up punching your fist into the wall a lot, and it's very, very uncomfortable. So you get in a position, you realize that's not going to work, otherwise you're going to have bloody knuckles. So you have to come back, and then you realize your barrel is so friggin' short that when you rest up here, you're at risk of bumping your barrel under recoil or just bumping your barrel into the cover. It's
I realize like how difficult it is to stabilize for a shot with a bullpup. Like, you know, the advantages of so the weight is so far to the rear definitely makes it easier to stabilize for like a standing shot, kneeling shot. But anytime you want to actually, work off of a piece of cover, it becomes way more difficult than an AR.
Incredibly so.
And then, like, with the,
and then the magazine gets in the way.
Yeah, the magazine screws you up.
Because you're you know, you want to aim down. The magazine pushes you up during recoil. The gun dips down. It's tougher than I thought.
The brush buster handguards, you know, that are on like the X95 and.
Yeah, I thought that was a complete. I thought that was a complete joke.
I always thought it looked. Yeah,
I wanted to mill it off if I ever got one of those. Turns out it serves a very useful, almost like the X95 and AUG are military rifles.
Almost, yeah, like they thought of that. So it serves a very useful purpose, but it also makes it look like a weed eater, like a cheap Walmart power tool. So
old bullpups tend to have the Fisher Price aesthetic.
Yeah. A lot of plastic going on. I think that the Bullpup's a space age concept, and therefore it's made out of space age materials like plastic.
I'll have you know, this one is covered in majority metal, but it weighs 8.5 pounds base.
Yeah, that's a heavy boy.
It's a heavy boy.
Yeah, so I mean, you're suffering from weird little ergonomic concerns, basically, like beating the shit out of your hands or finding a way to stabilize. The fact that it's really heavy. And every time you have to support it with one hand, you're thinking, oh, the weight's all back. It should be really nice, but it still ends up.
Yeah, it's still the weight. It still
ends up crushing your wrist a little bit.
It doesn't help that I destroyed my hand while climbing, but
yeah. Whereas, I mean, okay, this one feels maybe a little bit better. It's certainly lighter weight, but also my configuration is much lighter because I just gave up on the whole laser thing entirely.
It's ironic. I want your rifle to shoot. I want my rifle to strap my bullshit to.
Yep. But they have been shooting well.
Yeah.
We got, you know, these both have finely adjustable gas systems with many settings, so I was able to tune this to shoot reliably and comfortably suppressed. We figured out the gas system on there to get it to shoot suppressed with your bullshit ammo of choice.
What the fuck? Yeah, this one's interesting. All the malfunctions are induced because of me, because I don't know what the state of the rifle is, so I put a new mag in, rack the gun, induce a double feed, don't realize I've induced the double feed, and because of how weird it is, you can have a round in the chamber in this thing, and I think some other rounds free-floating in the back. But other than that, reliability has been fairly good so far, which is surprising because there is a reputation with this one about reliability. But we're only about 1,000 rounds in, so TBD.
Yeah, so this thing, once it got tuned, running great. I shot a little bit unsuppressed, shot it now mostly suppressed this trip. Brock borrowed it, slapped a mag of steel case in, and it jammed up on the first round. And, well, what do you do when you have a bad jam in a chamber that you just cannot access? You're going to have to mortar the gun. But this is a pretty flimsy little
We don't know that's necessarily my fault. It might have already been cracked before I mortared it.
It's possible, but I think if we break the film down frame
by frame...
No,
don't break the film. That's my footage.
Zapruder film. I think we might see who the real culprit was.
That's honestly not the worst way to go about it.
I don't know what my hold at this range is.
Low edge plate.
What a disaster!
Back and to the left. Back and to the left.
But yeah, I think 20 minutes after we stopped shooting yesterday or the day before, I was like about to put this thing back in the bag, and just some more brass came out of it. Like,
Yeah.
Just some casings. I don't know where they were inside, but they just were like raining out.
I guess for those that aren't aware, because this is a kind of a idiosyncratic or weird feature, this ejects downward.
Yeah, and the downward ejection does seem to really make this a good suppressor host.
Yeah.
So between tunable gas system and the downward ejection, I don't feel like I get any gas to the face at all.
Which is a big problem
rare.
Bullpups have, because the action is on
Right
your
up next
face.
to right up next to your nose and eyeballs. The downward ejection also is like I have a bunch of like little casing dents and burn marks and stuff on my arms because the casings tend to fall down onto your arms and fall down into your lap if you're shooting in a certain position. So
How does that feel?
yeah, I burned myself a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, that's
Makes me glad I'm not left-handed, otherwise
yeah,
that'd be
that's
happening.
welcome to my life. Oh, now you know what it's like. Oh,
It's also melting my pants because the hot casings.
okay,
keep
so
landing on
that
my
was
pants.
that's the smell I'm smelling.
Yeah, that might be melting 511s.
Yeah, I mean this one's fine. I got the side eject model because the forward eject model, I wanted to give this thing every chance it could, and the forward eject model is more complicated and also weighs more. So I just went with the more reliable side eject model, which in retrospect, since I knew you were coming, I should have probably gotten the forward eject, but you know, live and learn.
Yeah, that would have been nice of you.
Yeah, but I also hate you. So this worked out well. Do you see the here, look at the camera? This
Oh, yeah. Yep. I got a nice little love tap from a couple casings.
Ow. Ow. Ow.
you caused a malfunction.
Ow. Ow.
The other thing I think that we keep noticing, and this is just us not being familiar with this style of platform, these both have the ability to lock the bolt to the rear like HK slap style.
Oh, yeah.
And they also have a regular last shot hold open. And so if you're working on something or you're trying to address a malfunction, you lock the bolts to the rear, do whatever you're doing down there.
Put the mag
in, start hitting the button, it won't go. What the hell's wrong with it? Oh, I have the bolt locked with the other bolt lock. Seems like an odd redundancy, and I'm not 100% sure why it exists, because these both have a manual bolt holder.
So if I had to guess, it's because they've realized the ergonomic issues you have with one of these being so close to your face, and a lot of times it takes a lot of force to bring it to the rear. So I assume they didn't really want you, I'm over here, they didn't really want you doing this.
That's true.
They didn't want you doing that.
That's kind of shitty.
Especially on a malfunction, that's shitty. So I assume they just want you, so if I was a righty, just bring it up like that, solve your malfunctions, or lock your gun to the rear like that. That is something that is sort of annoying on ARs that I laugh at righties doing. With it, with an AR, you have to bring the bolt to the rear while holding the mag well. I like the bolt lock. I thought it was stupid at first, and then I realized, this thing being not really in your workspace, being all the way back here,
I've heard that argument made, actually, that like, oh, it's already in your workspace, how convenient. Oh, it's so inconvenient. Trying to get mags out of a chest rig and into this thing, it's like, I actually kind of want to hold it away from my body so I can access it, but my sling is not set up to allow me to just like float the rifle away from my torso. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I should just start reloading this thing G3 style, just only use the charging handle and pretend these shitty little paddles.
Those don't work at all. Mine works really well, right? I've never had an issue engaging mine, but these paddles, like, you'll see me a lot of times go in and then
Yeah, as far as like the classic Bullpup ergonomic complaints, we don't really have them because these both have really good triggers. Oh, pretty good triggers.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, like, watch some of his fucking reloads. He's faster with a Bullpup than a lot of people are with an AR.
Stand by. 2.47. Sub 2.5 seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah. All right, let's try your gun. That's your best one yet? 386.
I'm definitely slowed down because this thing is kind of hard to access. It would be cool if you pushed it up instead of down. Then it would make everything super easy. And I think somebody makes like a weird mod for it where it's like it moves the lever to the side. So, the Etsy aftermarket has provided some solutions for the kel-tec, but I don't really give a shit about super fast reloads for most guns most of the time.
Yeah, I'm sure there are anecdotal scenarios where certain people have gotten fucked up because they didn't get their emergency reload in time. But generally speaking, you look through it, like the most hardcore type of military action, right? Like pipe hitter style stuff. And they talk about how throughout their entire career, they've barely even done tack loads.
Two things that I never see.
Barely done them.
Yeah, barely done emergency reloads. Two things that I never see in combat footage. One is speed reloads, and two is anybody using their sights or optic.
It's time for the Magpul Dynamics one.
Get the chamber check.
Oh my
Check the status.
Amazing. And you didn't even see anything either.
We've been shooting these for days and shooting the way that we would always shoot any other rifle, and we're not really noticing serious ergonomic problems. The problems that we have is just in setting them up the way that we would like them to be set up. It's more of a journey than it is with an AR. ARs are so easy. Also, all the accessories are built for the AR, so of course they go easily onto an AR rail and not so easily onto a Bullpup. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm super disadvantaged by the Bullpup. I don't feel like I really am benefiting that much from the Bullpup. The biggest thing would just be ballistics, because this has a longer barrel than any of my ARs. It's a 17-inch barrel.
To me, at least, I think you're having a little bit more fun with yours to a degree. Like on the flat range, this is cool. Like it works really well. But I believe a lot of shooting is going to be cover-based, based off of cover, stabilized, or you're going to just be upright, ripping rounds at, the fastest speed you can possibly can, so on and so forth. So my big gripe, once again, is utilizing these things off of cover, and they're horrendous to utilize off of cover. They're just, having such a short system just doesn't end up working out. So for me, the ergonomic things, none of them are really terrible alone. But I do begin, every time I switch back to an AR, it's like when I'm using this thing, I'm having a good time. But when I go back to an AR-15, it's like the training weights are like removed from your legs or something like that. It's not necessarily that any one of these issues is terrible, but it does feel like a death from 1,000 cuts type of scenario, maybe, at least for me.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just that all the little complaints kind of pile up that make me question then why I would choose a Bullpup over an AR. It's a perfectly adequate rifle, and you can make an argument for increased ballistics from the longer barrel and a shorter package, whatever. Or if you've got to bump around in the back of an APC and you're like, all right, we got to issue the shortest thing we can. Sure. But for us, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm basically going to be spending more money on a more niche platform that's going to be harder to set up for some, very tenuous benefits.
Yeah, I think I would enjoy this thing a lot more with a red dot magnifier, no night vision equipment, and just kind of like how you have yours set up. Mm-hmm. I think it's just a much better fit for it, which makes sense because I think the genesis of the Bullpup is a compact weapon for infantry, out of a plane or out of a metal tin box with wheels. It's not necessary for the special operator.
Yeah, I guess you don't see special operators using these unless they're like
unless
they have to because their countries are poor. I actually really like this rifle, and I want to put some more magnification on it and try shooting it, in some other configurations. But yeah, I'm not going to be like recommending that people seek out a Bullpup over an AR.
I think I'm more so at the start of my Bullpup journey, trying to figure out where exactly this thing makes sense for me, right? Because this thing works. Clearly, it works. It works at all different ranges, but there's something about it that is a little annoying to me every time I bring this thing out. Probably has a little bit to do with that 8-pound base rifle weight. Probably has a little bit to do with that. But even with this thing, this thing is light, and there's a lot of other Bullpups that are fairly light. There's things that just annoy me, and I'm kind of figuring that out.
So if the problems with Bullpups amount to a handful of relatively trivial complaints and cumbersome night vision setups that nobody cares about anyway, why aren't they more popular? The biggest reason is probably just cost. The RDB is the cheapest Bullpup on the market right now at just over $1,000. That kind of money can get you into a pretty nice AR, certainly one with a better track record than the kel-tec. Most Bullpups, though, are quite a bit more expensive. The other big roadblock to widespread Bullpup adoption is probably AR pistol braces. Why buy an expensive, boutique Bullpup when you can just toss an SBA-3 on a shorty AR? You don't have to file paperwork to transport a pistol interstate, so it's no less convenient than a Bullpup, and the only downside is reduced terminal performance, which is a concept nobody understands all that well and even fewer people care about. Two things could make bullpups a lot more popular in the coming years. First, the ATF's attempted brace ban has put AR pistols on shaky legal ground. If the ban goes through, it will kill AR pistols, and even if it doesn't, the uncertainty surrounding them might still turn prospective buyers towards bullpups and non-NFA rifles. The other possibility is that we see a new manufacturer, like maybe Palmetto State Armory, come out with an entry-level bullpup. I think a lot more people would be buying bullpups if they could walk into a Bass Pro and get one off the rack for $600. If there was a bullpup equivalent to the Smith & Wesson M&P Sport II, it would serve as the gateway drug to get more bullpups into gun safes across the country. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know what you think about bullpups and what your experiences have been. This isn't a paper-thin ploy to try to boost comment engagement on this video. I'm actually curious. I think a lot of people speculate online about bullpups, but very few of them actually buy one and try to put it through its paces. If you like this channel, please subscribe, and if you'd like to support me more directly, you can do so via Subscribestar, link in the video description. If you join Subscribestar, you get early access to videos, as well as access to bonus videos that do not get publicly posted to the channel. There's also a link in the video description to my Linktree page, which will have affiliate and sponsorship links when applicable. I will see you guys next time.
Yeah, this doesn't look great yet.
I also have a coughing fit. How are you? Now we're good.
All right, that's a wrap.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everybody. Brock, you want to toss in one of those dog whistles for Reddit? You're Asian, so you're good at math and can't drive. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. He's terrible at math.
What? I'm good at StarCraft.
What? Oh. I don't know why I always do that.